All right, welcome everybody. Jerry and Leekey, call sign Leekster, with you today. We have an amazing show. I'm really excited about our guest today. Is Admiral J. Campbell, call sign Rabbit. Unbelievable career in naval aviation, kind of a signature career, really, of the kind of guy that I wanted to be when I was growing up, and I'm really thrilled to get a chance to interview him. We got Smokin' Joe Rudzika here, former demo Rio in the F-14, and we also have Rob Todd, our Catapult launch man, and we'll go through Rabbit's career, and I'm sure we're going to have some interesting tidbits today. We spoke a little bit earlier, and why I was amazed was how you finished your career, Admiral. Was you're telling me about your last flight around the ship and your last, I believe it was your last flight as a naval aviator, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. It was going out, as you said, like any naval aviator really would want to. Background to it is there'd been some years in the mid to late 90s when none of the flag officers were in the ready room or anywhere other than maybe up on the flag bridge and hiding out in the in-port cabin. So as I was fortunate to get Cargo 7, and Winston Copeland got Cargo 8 on the East Coast. We linked up together and went and pressed the CNO, who just happened to be former JO friend of mine, Jay Johnson, and reminded him that he was flying as a cargo and that that's where we should be. So, long story, but we get back in the airplane as semi-old guys. So I was flying F-18s because it was too hard on the West Coast to get back and fly with the Tomcat guys again. And got checked out, car qualled and all that. And got relieved before I wanted to leave. So my relief shows up, and it turns out the ship, the John C. Stennis, needed to get underway just to do a workup before going through their ORS, their nuclear certification before going on cruise. So they were going to be underway for 3 days, but with no air wing. So I big dealed my relief to walk aboard. And then I jumped in an F-18 along with one of the JOs from 146. And we launched out thinking we were going to last trap, good deal, get doused. And then I'd go down and start my turnover with my relief. Good news was the air boss turned out to have been a JO when I was CO of VF2. And so he said, hey, the flight deck crew needs some work. You guys good to go? So me and my wingman got shot off for 6. He said, well, thank you. So we got another 6.
Wow.
I think I slipped onto the 4-wire on number 12. And as I'm coming out of the gear, he says, hey, we can give you a waiver and pump you. And I'm thinking, it's a good day so far. Never done it before. Keyed the mic, said, uncle. And that was the last flight. So 12 traps on the carrier, new jet, F-18 at the time. Way to go out.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, that's the way I mean, most people don't realize that for us as naval aviators, getting arrested landings is a pretty big deal. And we're all trying to get as many of those as we can get. And you have quite a few, right? What's your total trap count at the end of your career?
You know, I should have it memorized, but it's 1262, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's over 1,200, and there's not a lot of guys that get over 1,000, which is pretty incredible that you have 1,200 plus traps. Your average JO is lucky to get maybe 150, 200 traps by the time they're rolling out of their first squadron. That is absolutely incredible, which is a kind of a testimony to how much time you spend at sea, I would imagine, right?
Well, that's part of it. And timing, again, is everything. We can go back to it later, but for instance, being the first East Coast F-14 Air Wing in Air Wing 1, when it was a goal, and we met the goal, to get every one of the pilots 100 traps by the end of the cruise. So if you made 2 cruises, you were guaranteed 200 traps.
Sure.
Yeah. And the missions, the way they are today, got 7-hour missions, whatnot. Fly every other day if you're lucky. You know,
Right.
we used to moan if we didn't get 3 every 2 days. So, yeah.
Well, let's go back to the beginning because that, for us naval aviators and the guys who are looking to be naval aviators, they always want to know how did we end up where we ended up? And I mean, you're kind of an American story, right? Born in Washington, D.C., and then ROTC, where at UCLA, I think it is. So
Yep.
you're kind of a
Yep.
California guy to begin with, and so a West Coast guy. You probably knew that naval aviation was hopefully in your future from the beginning. Is that how it started?
Well, yeah. My dad was in the Navy during the war in D.C. So, but he and my mom were both Southern Californians. So, although I was born there at 6 months old, they came back to California. So, yeah, I'm a California boy.
Right.
And my dad got into aerospace after the war, developed inertial navigation systems first for missiles and then later for military aircraft with Northrop. And I just got the bug and learned about Navy ROTC and signed up knowing I wanted to go fly.
So your flight school in those days, you went to several different places. Obviously, you started probably in Pensacola. Is that right? Or where did you ended up going to Beeville and Meridian for the jet stuff, though?
Yeah, the way it worked in our, if you're already commissioned like NROTC and the Academy, you went down to Pensacola for what they called flight prep. And it was about 8 weeks of academics and included the basic survival, going out to Panama Beach and eating palmetto bugs and stuff like that.
Right.
And once you got through that, you went over to primary in the T-34 at Sofley Field, which is now a federal prison.
Right.
And if you made the cuts for jets, all the basic jet training was done up at Meridian. There were 2 squadrons, VT-7 and VT-9, both flying the single engine T-2A.
Wow.
T-2A.
Underpowered.
T-2A. Yeah.
Yeah. It is is kind of
Seemed like a rocket ship at the time.
Right, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, and then after you got through the instruments, the basics, the formation, whatnot, they sent us back down to Pensacola to VT4, where you did gunnery for about 3.5 weeks, air gunnery, and in the T2B, the twin engine true rocket ship.
With 50 cals, right?
Yeah.
50 caliber gun pods.
And then Carqual in the T2B.
Wow.
And normally you'd go out to Lexington, which was the duty carrier. Did you guys go to Lex?
I went to Lex, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but was it out of Pensacola or where was it?
It was out of Pensacola, but for whatever reason, Lex wasn't available for my class. So we flew over to Mayport and did our T2 Carqual on Essex and got the big deal brief that, hey, we don't normally go on this carrier. It's got hydraulic cats. It's going to hit you like that, and away you go. So no kidding, have your head back, be ready. And I can almost remember doing all of it, but I was in a world of my own.
Oh yeah, it's overwhelming when you do your first catapult shots and arrested landings, and you don't at that time. Here you are in a hydraulic catapult, but you really didn't have anything to compare it to because you hadn't done steam cats, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, and then after that, you're over
and then
to Beeville.
Down to advance. Yeah. Then you go down to advance, and it's either in my era Kingsville or Beeville. Oh, by the way, I got a week's leave and I got married in between gunnery and Carqual. So nice. I got this brand new wife, and I know they're going to send us to Kingsville where they got housing. Now we got Beeville. So my wife and I slept on a friend couple's floor of a house they were able to get while we waited for 3.5 weeks to get a place to live. So, yeah.
I hope you didn't show up during the summer when it was 105.
We showed up the last week of July. Yeah.
Wow, perfect. This new wife is very impressed with you so far that
So
she has to
far,
sleep
yeah,
on the
she's loving
floor
it.
in
She's
Texas.
wondering. Phil Faith is thinking, "What have I done?" Yeah.
That's great. So you get winged and you select for the F8, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out my skipper at VT-24 was an F8 driver, last name Campbell, and I did okay at the boat. And I thought I was going F4s because I was like number one in the class. Said, "Not, you're going F8s."
Wow.
Last of the gunfighters though, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
I mean, the F4 was still kind of shiny new in '68, so um, that was kind of the number one pick for everybody. Best thing that happened to me though was going to F8s and getting in the squadron I got in.
sure. Meanwhile, all in the background, Vietnam is going hardcore in 67 and 68. I mean, there's a whole lot going on in this time period in American history. I mean, were you guys aware of all that stuff, or how did that affect you from ROTC all the way through to the RAG? I mean, did you see that kind of thing in the U.S. like you see in the
That's a
movies?
that's a great story or a great question because imagine going into signing on the dotted line and going into the Navy as an ROTC guy, knowing you're going to serve a commitment. And the summer you're on your midshipman cruise, the Tonkin Gulf incident happens. So all of a sudden you started in peacetime, and now every year it escalates and gets more and more involved. And, the riots start in 67 and 68. And yeah, very aware of what's going on.
Right.
And thinking, hey, we're going to get thrown right in the briar patch.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? I mean, what a feeling. And you just, I kind of went through a similar experience, nothing like Vietnam, of course, but in the RAG when Saddam decides to invade Kuwait, and then it just goes, and you just know. And then by the time I end up in my squadron as the newest guy, all of a sudden we're headed straight there, and it's just
Yeah,
amazing how you can see this train coming down the tracks and you go, oh man, this is going to happen to me. I'm going to be the guy, I'm going to have to go. And I remember that feeling a lot. And I was, just met my wife too. So it was kind of an interesting experience. So you go to the F8 and you go to the RAG and did I hear right that Hoser was there, or when did you fly with Hoser? Was that at that time or later? It must have been later, right?
yeah. When I got to the RAG in '69, right at the turn of '69, Hoser was one of the flight instructors there. Yeah,
So you
legendary.
get to know a legend, another legend among the many legends that I'm sure you met
Early
during your
on,
career.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll hear his name come up a lot more here. Yeah.
All right. So you go through the RAG. Anything interesting in the RAG? They have you guys dropping bombs, or were you just doing strafing, or how was the F8? What was your impression of the having an afterburner for the first time?
They didn't let you normally get your first hop in afterburner. You did a military takeoff just to get feel of the airplane, go up and go around. But boy, from then on, lighting that fire, hearing that boom, it is a real eye opener for a young man. Yeah.
So you knew you could bug out. Did you think that was it faster on the bug than an F4, or what? Did you guys do any ACM, or did you do any basic fighter maneuvers with the F4 with the F8? How would you compare those two airplanes?
We did a lot of basic flight maneuvers, ACM. I mean, the F8 community was steeped in the business of solving the problem of getting to a rear quadrant, closing the range, and getting a shot either with a missile or guns. So that was a big part of the syllabus for the F8. When we went on our weapons debt, we would drop Mark 76s and then a couple of Mark 82s, lead filled, before we went to air-to-air gunnery. And the guys, when we were still flying over the north, were carrying bombs on F-8s. During my 2 cruises, although when we came back for turnaround, we practiced bombing both at Fallon and El Centro. We never bombed on cruise. In 72, that air wing was carrying bombs again, both over the north. And
Well, you always hear on the news of media or all the media about Top Gun is that, naval aviation, the Air Force as well, had atrophied in their air-to-air fighting skills. Was that your impression before Top Gun came along, or how does that equation come together for you?
Well, again, in a community, and we didn't talk a lot about kill ratio as nugget FERPs, but the basics were that the F-8s had a much better kill ratio going on in Vietnam leading up to 1969, than the F-4 guys did. And a lot of the reasons for that were that the F-4s had to rely on their radar and then getting the VID and then finding a missile envelope, and they were screwing it up. And the missiles weren't guiding, and it was either, Sparrow problems or out of envelope AIM-9 shots. And a lot of it because their training didn't involve a lot of real hard, no kidding, basic flight maneuvers, ACM at that time. And that was proven out by the alt report. Mm-hmm. So that got fed back, and it's a little known fact that there was a graduate course going on in the F-8 RAG at 124 before Top Gun stood up over at 121. And guys would come back from a deployment and would come in for, it was only about 4 weeks, and it was maybe 10 flights, but they called it advanced weapons training in the F-8 RAG. They did away with it once Top Gun stood up. And amazingly, there was a little manual, and I don't know if Top Gun Library ever kept one. There was a no-kidding little syllabus manual that said Top Gun on it in the F-8 RAG. And I'm not going to say they stole the name, but it's amazing that became the moniker over there in 121.
That is a cool piece of trivia right there. I did not know that, but
now, see, that's the way Rabbit remembers it. So I'm sure it's absolutely verifiable.
Oh, it's accurate. It's accurate.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that one over a drink in Vegas and see if anybody has any other opinions. But I think that sounds like the truth to me.
Well, and it really worked. The F-4 community got hot on the ACM, and I'm going to tell you, an F-8 against an F-4. Anywhere below 20,000 feet, better know what they're doing because they're going to get outpowered, and they're not going to have any more turn rate than
right.
F-4. But if we could drag them up above 18, 20,000 feet, if they wanted to really mix it up, they were in trouble.
Interesting. Yeah, and a lot of those. Okay, so when you did those 2 tours on the Oriskany, you said you did a lot of bar caps and basically kind of fighter protecting strikers, right? Is what your primary mission was.
Right. Yeah.
So what altitude? I'm always surprised when I talk to Winston Copeland, when you mentioned him earlier, that and the book that I just read by Stephen Kuntz, and there's a lot of interesting interviews out there about guys doing that in Vietnam, that they were at medium to low altitude many times. Is that where was your bread and butter at? Were you hanging around at 20 or down at 10, or where were you?
Well, if we were with it depended on the mission. Okay, so if you're a Blue Tree escort, a photo escort, you're down with them. So you're at 500 feet and 580 knots, and looking.
Which is probably the most dangerous mission that you would do, I would imagine, right, because of the AAA. Yeah.
If on Oriskany and my air wing, we had A7s rather than A4s, so we'd go in with the A7s at anywhere between maybe 17, 20,000 feet. And they'd roll in from 15 on their runs. We'd be hanging above. But there were times over by the Oshaw Valley where a FAC would ask if somebody had ammo for strafe, and we'd drop down and we'd strafe like we trained. So
Right.
stupidly, we'd be down there at 5,000 feet rolling in and pulling out at 3,500. And,
Yeah.
you're down amongst it then. You're vulnerable.
Most people don't realize that the greatest percentage of losses in combat aviation across the board, I don't, World War I to nearly modern times, is from AAA. And it's just lucky shots. They throw up enough lead, and eventually somebody gets tagged, and that's where airplanes are lost. So
Yeah.
if we're above, in Vietnam, I would imagine from what I read, around 4,000 or 5,000 feet and above, you had kind of a sanctuary. It was pretty hard to get tagged up, especially above 20. You're not going to get hit by AAA, right? You're more looking at SAMs at that point.
Basically, there was 87 millimeter. Was it 87, 83? I can't remember, but they had some higher altitude AAA. We didn't worry that much about that. It was later on. It was the ZSU 4s and the 37 millimeter,
which were
stuff you
radar
could do
guided
both.
too. Were they radar guided then, or they were just manually guided? Probably just manually guided, I would imagine.
No, they were radar guided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's some serious
But-
business. I think 23 mil, 20. So
Yeah.
you're talking 4,000 or 5,000 feet max,
Well,
probably.
you
but-
would have seen a lot of that in Desert Storm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the golden hose, they call it.
Right. But again, I mean, if you're up at 15, 18,000 feet, you're looking at it peter out below you. Yeah.
Yeah, but the first time you see it at night, it's never fun. I know that for a fact. You can't get high enough. You're
Well,
stuck in your block too.
a little pucker. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you get used to those. You see those down, but the first time you see it, you don't know what it's going to look like. So did you guys have any radar warning gear on the F8?
I was fortunate again to be later on, so they had both SAM alert and raw gear. So it was installed in a kind of haphazard fashion wherever they could find room in the F8, and they called the installation of the ECM gear shoehorn.
Yeah, they just had to stick it wherever they could, right? Because it wasn't
Right.
originally designed to the airplane. Yeah, kind of like there's always the lore of the guys flying with the fuzzbuster on the dash of the F4 or whatever we heard back in the day.
Yeah, but no, didn't have to worry about that.
So the Oriskany, did you guys have any? How did the A7s do? Did those guys did they bring everybody back? Because you read about these air wings where they lost incredible amounts of airplanes during some of those time periods.
Again, this was 70 and 71, and we lost a total probably of 4 or 5 A7s max on the each cruise.
Wow,
Couple
that's
of
great.
F8s just due to mishaps.
Uh-huh.
But
That's
yeah,
lucky.
on my first cruise, our CAG got bagged over by Laos and killed. Not a POW. He got bagged.
Wow. And that was in an A7 as well?
Yeah. Yep.
So that, I'm sure you remembered that when you were going on your first strike lead as a CAG into Iraq.
Yeah, but I was flying a Tomcat, so I felt safer
That's right.
somehow.
Yeah, that's great.
Leekster, quick question for Admiral. What do you recall what like divert fields that they would brief for y'all in country? Was it like Tan Son Nhut, or did they, if you had a problem, did you?
There was the divert field was Da Nang.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was it. So you're either going there or you're giving it back to the government.
Yep.
And getting
Well, or having a slider and auto dog on the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Right. So in the F-8, if you couldn't get the wing up into that angle of incidence that it changed to for landing, I understand that sometimes they would try and land the airplane on the ship. Was that a pilot option during your time period, or was that something that you guys ever saw, or how reliable was that system?
We talked about it, but the system was ultimately reliable. Never had an instance to do it. The gouge was you were going to fly in the barricade
Wow.
because you were going fast, and they were going to clear the bow and hope the barricade held you. Yeah, because you
Yuck.
were going to come aboard about 180, something like that.
Oh, man. Ugh.
pretty fast.
Knots, not miles an hour, knots.
Yeah. Yeah, that's closer to 200 miles an hour. So that's very, very, I mean, you watch no flap landings come in on even modern ships, and it looks like it's shocking how much faster it is. I mean,
Yeah, it
and
looks
as a
sped
pilot,
up,
it's,
doesn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's freaky. Yeah. Wow.
Well, the hardest part about trying to do that if the wing is down is seeing, because you're kind of cocked up a little bit instead of having the fuselage down with the wing up, and
Right.
it would be near disaster to try to trap one on the ship.
Yeah.
So
And I've seen pictures of the F-8s with the wings folded in flight.
yeah, amazing knuckleheads.
Yeah, that's a good way to get famous, right?
Yeah.
So moving on, you come back and you end up in San Diego, and then you did you go into this adversary role? I mean, was that something you wanted to do, or how did that work
Another
out?
good fortune. I live in a lucky tree. So Bug Roach and I were roommates in
Come
World
on.
War One, and we that's another story. We'll do it another time.
Wow.
So we get RAG orders and come back to 124, and they say, "Hey, we're gearing up. We got agreement with Top Gun. You two guys, new guys, going to go up and get checked out in A4s, and you'll be flying both F8 instructional hops and bogey hops." So Bug and I went up to El Toro, got checked out in the A4, came back down, and the airplanes we flew were Top Gun airplanes.
And so these A4s, a lot of people don't realize the thrust to weight ratio, and with this big motor. Can you talk about that with that airplane?
Well, now this was 1972 through 74. So it was the first batch of A4s that Top Gun had.
Were
And
those like C's or something?
no, these were A4Es,
E's.
and they were cleaned up. And in order to not have to mess with asymmetrical slats, they bolted them up.
Come on.
I'm not kidding. And they referred to the airplane as the mongoose.
Yeah.
So it was still very impressive, but you couldn't really do a 200 knot loop with the slats bolted up. It was it was more than a stretch.
No slow
And,
fighting, basically. I mean, you got your hands tied behind your back, basically, on
just
if
a
you're
little
slow.
bit, but it
Yeah.
was still a good. I mean, you could fight it at 160,
Yeah.
150, pretty easy. So if a silly F8 decided he wanted to get slow with you, he was in trouble.
Right, right.
It was a very good adversary, and it was all we had at the time. So, so then it would have been in 73. All of a sudden, there was a dearth of airplanes because Israel needed A4s, and they tapped Top Gun, and almost every one of their airplanes got remodded, outfitted, and flown over to Israel
Uh-huh.
for the
Okay.
Yom Kippur War. Yeah.
And so the big engine A4 you saw later then.
Right, when I was XO. Yeah.
And so what, I mean, tell us more. Can you tell us, I mean, there's a lot of folks don't realize how incredible of a BFM machine that was. And I mean, realistically, it's not set up for combat. So, you know, those people that think, oh, this would be great for combat, you know, combat loadouts are a whole different animal when you're carrying drop tanks and extra stuff hanging off the airplane or things get draggy, whatever. But that airplane set up for BFM for Top Gun was just insane.
It was. I mean, there was nothing on it. Light nose. Like I said, you said the big engine, the P408. What is it? It's like a 16,000-pound airplane, empty. And
wow, that'll turn the corner, man.
yeah, with no afterburner or anything, but what that put out like 14,000 pounds of thrust. So even with a full bag, you're out thrust awaiting everybody on the base.
Yeah, I mean you're nearly at combat fuel. Let's say half fuel or a little bit below. You're basically at the same thrust to weight ratio as an F-14A.
Yeah,
which is pretty scary when you're fighting this little old A4 and the guy is going vertical with you, and you're like, what the? You're like,
he's not leaving. Yeah.
They're pretty. They can be kind of pesky, you know, with that big motor. It was a tough fight, but a lot of fun to fight too, as long as you kept them in sight, you know. All right, so moving on. So you ended up as an air wing commander. How does one end up as a CAG?
You got to be lucky, and I guess that's where I was. First of all, I was very fortunate to go from squadron to squadron to squadron with no real interruption. And for a pilot, for a naval aviator, that's the dream, and it's the thing they say you can't do. It's a career ender, but I seem to always end up in a good outfit too. So I think that had a lot to play.
So you had an F-14 squadron command prior to that, is that correct?
Oh yeah, I was one of the kind of middle of the time super CAGs. So super CAG wasn't brand new, but yeah. So I'd had VF2, and I was the RAG CO at 101, and I got selected for. Actually, it looked like I was going to go deep draft because I got selected for XO of conventional carrier, and before anything happened, and I was still the CO at 101, I selected for CAG.
Wow. So I would be remiss. I guess I skipped something here that I think is really important. But when you first started flying and the hours that you have in the F-14, what was your impression of the airplane as a combat air-to-air machine?
Wow.
It's a big subject. I realize that. But.
I'm coming from F8s directly into F-14s, and it looked like a beast, and it flew like an A4. What can I tell you? I mean, it could turn. It had power, clean. When we first started, nobody even dreamt of putting NOx tanks on them. We just flew them.
Right.
I was deeply impressed. And I thought, especially after going out to the ship, we'd never lose an airplane to a carrier mishap. It just can't happen. Got a big deck, got this F-14, it's coming in there, it's almost walking in.
Right.
How do you go wrong there? And amazing how technology catches up. And I swear people were telling me when the airplane retired, they considered it the most notorious airplane at the ship.
Right.
It's hard to believe. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my part of the thing with the airplane is it's kind of a sweetheart in a lot of ways, that it does amazing things. But then when it decides to stop doing the predictable things, it really goes sideways quickly. And no pun intended, but 90 degree per second departure rates are pretty violent if you're involved in one of those. And it seems like a lot of those were the ones that we lost in the spin, compressor stall spin scenarios. But there's a few ramp strikes here and there. Yeah, the airplane. I thought there was the latency in the engines was not that big of an issue, to be honest with you, for landing on the ship. How would that compare to the F-8?
Oh, I agree. I was fortunate to have upgraded engines in the F-8Js I flew. And the F-8J was different from other models because it had BLC. It had air blown over the trailing edge
Uh-huh.
to help with its handling of the ship. It also slowed it down a little bit. So we were the guys that had the I'm going to say I'm trying to remember what the J57 mod was, but the crews before me, they were basically at bingo to get light enough to land on the carrier in the Tonkin Gulf with the high humidity and the temperature and all that stuff.
Sure.
Right on the edge of the power curve coming
Wow.
aboard. And we were lucky. I mean, we could come aboard with 3.0, and our bingo was usually 1.2. So we had a lot of fuel. At night, you get 4 or 5 passes.
1.2 was the bingo fuel?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was Da Nang, so it was only like 70
60
miles
miles
away.
Yeah.
Hell no. That's low.
Remember, there's only one engine, so yeah.
Yeah. And then remember, guys tend to use parallax on those numbers too, a lot of times.
Greatest story I ever heard was a friend of mine, Frog Burgess, in the pattern at night, in the barrel, maybe on his third go around. And he's a beam, calls a beam, and Cassie comes up and says, "Say your state." He came back and said, "Ask me something in the middle." I'm not looking over there. I don't know.
I believe it. Yeah, that's spooky, man. And landing with the low fuel lights or a low fuel situation is something that most people, one time is enough to scare you. It's but when you're in an airplane like that, you probably didn't have much choice because you're trick or treat a lot of times, I would imagine, on the first pass.
Well, I think the F4 guys had it, that they were only good for a couple of passes at night in the CCA pattern too.
A lot of Hornets were like that towards the end of Desert Storm because they were trying to bring stuff back, and then they had like one pass basically.
Yeah. So I digressed a bit there, but handling around the ship, flying up and away, ACM, I was overwhelmed with what I saw as the capability of the F-14, and again, I mean, I was on the leading edge, so VF1 and 2 were already worked up. I was going to VF14, but they were pretty much all the way through their RAG evolution. And I was actually in classes with guys from 142 and 143. But we hadn't had any big issues with the airplane yet. So we go up and just ring it out. And it seemed like it let us. And then we started having thump bangs, and guys did have departures into flat spins, and yeah, it made you get some respect for what could happen.
Sure. What about the radar and the BVR capability? I mean, that must have been a whole new thing for you, right? I mean, that's thrilling, right? To see what you could actually do with those missiles.
Oh yeah. We flew at night bar cap in the F-8 with AIM-9s, if you can imagine that. So you're going to have to get a pretty good visual with it to get a tone. Yeah. But we actually had radars that worked, all pulse. But we'd lock up on the tanker at 18, 16 miles, something like that.
Wow. That's
get
usable.
A contact outside of 20 miles. So, yeah.
Is that all look up or?
Well, there was a scope right in front of you,
Yeah, but I mean the
and your
elevation wise, we could
and
you
your
couldn't.
VSI was down below it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But you couldn't. I'm talking about you couldn't really point that pulse at the ground and break out targets, or could you?
no, no,
So you have to be below your adversary, is what I'm saying.
that's right. Look down,
Yeah,
not really an option.
yeah. Um, so now you're CAG, and another amazing timing is, I mean, you join the air wing and take over the air wing, and now you're headed over to Iraq. I mean, what are the odds?
Yeah, well, I joined the RAG. Well, let's see, I took over in trying to get the timing down here again in early '90. So we're at Fallon and working up. Things are going great. We know we're going to deploy somewhere in late fall. And biggest life, Saddam invades Kuwait there in August. And all the training got singularly focused on the first 3 days of a war. And all the air wings were doing that. So we had our target sets, and away we went. So we went back up to Fallon again, and we're waiting for the inevitable. And biggest life, we deployed first week in December and chop into the Persian Gulf on the 16th of December, ready to start the war.
A month
I'm
before.
sorry, January.
Oh,
16th of January.
right.
Start the
Yeah.
war the
So the
next
day
day.
before.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and so the special deal on Ranger, I had CAG-2 on the Ranger, and we were the all Grumman air wings. So we had A6s and F-14s, and that was it. S3s and whatnot. But, our striking power was F8, F-14s and A6s. And Ernie Christensen was the CO of Ranger. And before we left San Diego, he big dealed a television satellite antenna. So
Yikes.
he watched the war, as did most of the crew, from the ship through CNN.
Oh,
As
man.
what's his name would
Admiral,
come
were
up
you
and
in the
say,
Red
the
Sea
midnight
or
sky has lighted up over Baghdad, and they're all
Right.
watching. And
Yeah,
whatnot.
Admiral,
sure.
were you in the Red Sea or the Persian Gulf?
We're in the Persian Gulf.
Okay.
We chopped in there behind Midway, and
Mhm.
TR showed up a day and a half later, I guess. And America finally made it around out of the Red Sea
Yes.
at like 2 weeks into it, something like
So
that.
LEEKSTER and I were on the America,
There you
right
go.
behind you guys.
There you go.
Yeah, we had to fly the missions all the way across Saudi Arabia. And when we got over to the Persian Gulf was nice because we could it was much
Yeah.
shorter missions and you had tankers available all the time and all that stuff. So I see that you flew like 27 night missions in a row. So you put yourself on the night page for all this stuff in the beginning. You were a strike lead in the first night. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep. Well, again, think about how the distribution of labor was. Because we had A6s solely to keep the war going 24/7, we were the night carrier. So we'd launch at dusk, and last recovery just, some guys got morning pinkies, but mostly you were out and away at night. And
Right.
we flew the whole war that way. So everybody was flying at night. And I got restricted by Zap Zlatiper, the embarked flag, who said after, I guess it was the end of the first week, he said, CAG, you're not going to fly every day. You're going to fly every other day or so. So I got shortchanged. Some of the other CAGs got to fly every day.
Oh man, that's funny. You look like a kid who somebody just took their PS5 away from him or whatever. That's
Yeah, ice
terrible.
cream
Yeah,
cone. Yeah.
that's great. So, okay. So one of the biggest impressions that I have, well, two things. I need to ask you one that's maybe not. That's kind of a touchy question. Was there any discussion in your air wing about going in low that first week?
There was. And I sat down with Zap, who was an A6 pilot himself, And we determined that that mission on the third night to mine the entrance to Sur was a valid mission. And that one had to be low.
Right.
So, and that's where we lost an airplane. And that was our only loss. And we're pretty sure he was number 4. And I was actually airborne overhead in an F-14. And we just think he got bagged by AAA.
Okay.
The video that came back, the A6 tram airplanes had great recorders, so we got great visuals when they came back. And they were getting the shit shot out of them down there. That was the last time we flew low.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it was
I think
a little.
that was the third night for us. And I want to say it wasn't more than a few days later, everybody moved up.
Right.
The tornadoes had taken a big hit.
Oh, yeah. The Italians that went in low, the tornadoes that went in low, whatever Navy air wing that went in low. I mean, everybody that went low got spanked, and it was pretty serious business. And that was unfortunately, I mean, that's how we had trained for my entire career. I'm sure most of your career, all the attack guys were training to go in low at night, the A6 guys anyways.
So the airplanes, it's how the airplane's built.
Yeah, and then to flip the script, everyone's like, "What?" But the density of AAA was brutal.
Yeah, we came up. Did you fly any kill box stuff in Kuwait?
Sure, yes, sir.
Because we did considerable of that, especially later on, trying to force them out. And we came up with some pretty good tactics with the A6 to load them with APAM on one wing and LGB on the other. And they go around looking for a turret, a tank or, whatever they could find. And they drop APAM on the site from higher altitude while they locked it up with a tram, arc out 7 miles, come back in, and then put an LGB right on it.
Wow.
And
those guys I have to say, and I tell people this all the time, that I have ultimate respect for the A6 guys that I knew in that time period. Those guys had huge stones. They were amazing pilots, very professional, and they were lethal. That airplane was amazing, the amount of ordnance that it could carry over the beach. And I was just floored on the missions that I went on watching the A6s do their job. They were, and those guys, when I say they had big stones, I mean they flew right into the heart of those incredibly overlapping SAM rings. When you looked at those SAM rings and before you launched on your mission, you were like, yikes, that's a lot of SAMs.
Yeah.
And they were going right down the middle of that, trusting the seed mission to do its job, the harm and the guys to take out those radars. And that's a lot of trust.
Yeah. Those first flights, the first couple of weeks, they really proved their mettle. Sure did. And the diversity of weapons they could carry was pretty amazing too. I mean, I saw them taking out, I didn't get to do it, but I saw them take out surface ships, small surface ships with skippers, which were just basically a glide bomb.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. How was your mindset different from going to Vietnam as a JO, learning your craft, and then being the daddy, being the CAG, and knowing these guys are all under your wing basically?
It was fairly awesome. You're a good example of a generation that had never seen combat, and there were 3 folks in the air wing that had been in Vietnam. Myself, our CAG LSO, Bug Roach, and
wow,
one of the A6 pilots, McGraw. And everybody else from squadron COs on down is their first combat. So a lot of practical communication, a lot of study of what each mission was. And this is, I mean, this is before flight planning as we've come to know it now. The guys were really up for it, and they had a good target set. They knew that what they were going after was going to make a difference for what they would go after later, and it made sense. And a lot of that didn't make sense when we were flying in Vietnam. So
of course.
it was, it was incumbent on the leadership, not just me as CAG, but the carrier CO and the embark flag, to make sure that, when we got our inputs into the ATO and then got the ATO back, we felt like we had real valued targets. And we had the weapons to take them out. I mean, we weren't doing random dumb bombs. We were putting precision weapons on targets.
Yeah, and every single day.
Much different, yeah.
So speaking of the air tasking order, it seemed like prior to the kickoff, there was all these plans for MiG sweeps and such with F-14s, and it seemed like politics kind of got in the way of that, and a little bit on the capabilities of the airplane as well. But it all of a sudden, all the F-15s kind of got all the MiG sweeps, and the F-14s were kind of pushed to the side. Did you see any of that politics, or were you just heads down on the ship with your own stuff?
Well, we were in the know, but there's nothing we could do about it. It was an Air Force show in that regard. And if you recall, you couldn't get BVR clearance unless you were linked up to AWACS. E2 didn't count as far as the
EID matrix, yeah.
Yeah, KOC needed that, in their bag. I'm amazed that Admiral Fox was able to get some of the clearance he got. But yeah, it was, we knew going in that we were handcuffed a little bit with the BVR, and everybody wanted to get a kill with a Phoenix, but we kind of knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, that was incredibly frustrating for all of us. More so, I was hanging on by my fingernails because I was a junior new guy, and but all the guys who just came from Top Gun and senior F-14 guys, they were just so excited. Everybody was really ready to get some kills, and then we just weren't allowed to. Basically, we were put with our strike packages, and that was pretty much it. Until later in the war, they put us on the border over there by Iran, but that was about it.
Yeah, well, and of course, after the first 10 days, there's no more activity. They all beat feet or hid themselves.
Yeah. Oh, they were smart to not fly. The ones that took off weren't getting back for dinner, that's for sure. So as a CAG, one more thing, you have the opportunity to fly all kinds of other equipment when you have time. So I take it that did you take advantage of that to go fly an S3 or helicopters or things like that?
I didn't fly any helos in the Gulf, but I did fly one mission in the S3 because we were letting them do coastal interdiction. And I just went, it was when all the fires had got fired up in Kuwait, and just wanted to go out one night and see what they were up to. But other than that, it was mostly F-14, probably flew a dozen A6 hops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I never got to fly it, but it's a Grumman machine, right? Did it feel very familiar to you?
No, it's boy, is it sweet coming aboard the ship. None of the lateral fishing for lineup stuff, and you set the power, you get it trimmed, and you just fly the ball with that throttle a little bit. You don't have to move the stick at all.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool.
More like I've heard the F4 is, but I never took the F4 aboard the ship.
So what about the Hornet now? So how many hours did you end up in the F-18? I thought I saw it here.
I want to say over 200 around there. Yeah.
What did you think? I got to fly it a few times. I thought it was a very well designed flight controls. I thought it was a super easy airplane to fly, which is what you want for a fighter pilot. I mean, what was your impression?
Yeah, I agree. They'd automated so much of it that once you learn the system and got it where you wanted it, it was locked up. I mean, it was great aboard the ship. Um, I didn't fight it an awful lot. Did more air to ground, seemed like. Um, but yeah, I, I was really impressed. I had been away from flying for 5 years when I got the cargo, and so getting back in an airplane was real exercise for me. It's amazing how your brain slows down if you're not flying all the time. And you got to pick it up. You got to get with it again. And everything was digital all of a sudden. I mean, you had to learn your way through the MFPs, and
There's a lot of
they weren't
menus.
labeled. it was a real learning experience. But getting through that, I don't think I ever really had enough hours to be really comfortable in the airplane to say I'm its master. I think I'd take 500 hours
Right.
to really feel like, you got the airplane and it doesn't have you.
That's kind of what I used to tell people about the F-14 and the F-18. The difference is that probably the F-18 is about 500, and I think to be really good at flying the Tomcat, it's somewhere around 750, as far as, being a good fighter pilot. You of course had a lot more experience flying the F-8 and stuff, but as a nugget guy who just came straight to the F-14, for me, my observation with a lot of our guys was around 750. And then, of course, right at 1,000, guys were really solid, but that was when they would typically scare themselves once. Yeah, come close to ejecting. Usually, that
Yeah.
was you'd always hear the stories of because you're pushing the absolute limits of the performance of the airplane.
Now, did you ever see a guy getting a flat spin?
Just on video, and unfortunately, yeah, we lost one from our sister squadron, and they pulled the video up from the bottom of the ocean, and I got to see it, the HUD tape, and I was so blown away by the violence and sudden departure, how quickly it happened. He was in the middle of a very benign reversal turn to shoot. He'd shot one airplane, reversed to shoot another, and then the airplane just completely swapped ends instantaneously. It had a compressor stall, and it was loaded up and swapped ends, and they were out of the airplane at, I think this happened around 18,000, and they were out by 13. There was both engines were gone, and it was over instantly. It was frightening. I was like, whoa, it really got my attention. I mean, I was like, holy smokes, that would not be fun. Did you see one fighting, or did one of your buddies, did you see one spin?
Yeah, I even wrote an article for Approach Magazine back in
Oh, wow.
77. On our second med cruise in VF-14, rookie Rob, bless his soul, passed away a little over a year ago, had been through Top Gun. And he said, I've got this amazing guns defense maneuver that wowed him at Top Gun. And he was going to demonstrate it. And so he's my wingman. The skipper's in my back seat. We're out over the med, 24,000 feet. I'm rowing in. Pipper's on. Here it comes. Boom! Swaps ends. Around he goes. You're spinning. You're spinning right. And I couldn't keep up with him going downhill. That airplane loses so much altitude so quick when it's in a flat spin. Speed breaks, idle, and you can't get the nose down far enough to keep up with him. And he's talking all the time. Neither engine blew out.
Wow.
And he gets down to about 12,000 feet, and the nose starts doing what you see in that video from Pack's
Oscillating.
River.
Yeah.
It starts getting lower, and he says, I'm going to get it. And sure as stuff, he pulls out at about 2,000 feet. Both engines still running. Comes back, okay, 3, no big deal. But just amazing.
Wow.
And the fact that he got those spin controls in and rode that thing and recognized what it was doing, greatest piece of airmanship I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the skipper's yelling in my ICS, "Tell him to punch out! Tell him to punch out!"
Wow. So the difference between those two was the guy that I saw, he was at about zero 0.8 Mach. So the energy on the airplane was significantly higher. I would imagine if he was doing a guns D, it was probably a little around 200 or less, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the parameter, but
Yeah.
I would say it's probably below 300. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. So what else do you have for, I mean, your career reminds me of the old where the kid sees a naval aviator and he says, when I grow up, I want to be a pilot just like you. And the guy says, well, you can't do both, kid.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this is, kind of your career. You got to play. I mean, you really got to be a part of everything. I mean, you got to fly all these cool airplanes. I mean, the list is on nearly endless. I mean, it's unbelievable. 1,200 traps, 5,000 hours. It's spectacular. I mean, it's really lucky. Do you have any other impressions of the whole experience?
No, it just goes back to blind luck and good fortune. I was in a place where I could get flying orders one after another. So after I left VF-14, for example, the skipper wanted me to stay in Oceania and fly with VF-43 as an adversary. I went back to the West Coast because my wife said, "I'm leaving without you
Right.
if you don't come." So I got to VX4 where I ran into Hoser again because he'd just come back from ACEVAL, AIMVAL, and we're both working the F-14 office in VX4. And Hoser saves my life while I'm there, which is remarkable.
In an airplane or outside outside of work?
Yeah. We're flying against real bogeys up, we're deaded up at Fallon, but flying on the Nellis range. And we come out of the exercise and we're bugging VX4 style, real world, real low. And all of a sudden, Hoser comes up and goes, "Rabbit, you're showing that phone car." I said, "Nah, I got no joy, Hoser. You got the lead." And he says, "Negative, negative." I says, "Negative. You got the lead." And then his Rio, Rocky Deal, comes up and says, "Rabbit, you're on fire." So it turns out that you know how the motive fuel opened and closed the nozzles for the afterburner?
Yes.
Well, one of the lines broke and there was fuel flowing back there and it stayed fire after I came out of burner and it was just burning away back there. So I didn't have a fire light. I'm just aft of all the sensors.
Sure.
You can't see it.
Yeah.
So I throttle back, pull up, zoom, what is it? What are you guys talking about? And it turns out it's the left engine. And said, "You got to tell me it's really the left engine." So I'm shut it down. So yeah, it was really that. So they said the fire's out, but you're singed. So there's a strange airfield that I knew right where it was that you're not supposed to go to. And I went and landed there. And after they let us out of jail, and we looked at the airplane, the left rudder was the bottom hinge was just about burned off.
Wow.
So I figured if he hadn't seen the fire and it had kept going, I lost the rudder and God knows what would happen. So
right.
Hoser and his Rio didn't see it. He just looked over there and saw that was Hoser. He could see shit.
Yeah.
Good man.
Well, thank goodness that he spotted you and you got that engine shut down. I had a similar, almost identical, except mine didn't catch on fire. It was just shooting gas out of that. I mean, that's what most people don't know about the F-14 was that I'm sure that a lot of other airplanes work the same way, but the the actual hydraulic action that moves the turkey feathers, the puckering and unpuckering of the nozzles is from the afterburner fuel pump, which is,
Right.
so it's running fuel through back there. So if you get a fuel line breaks, you've got a massive amount of fuel that's dumping out there, because those afterburners they're designed to have a lot of gas in there. And now you've got a big fire where there's a lot of high pressure and high temperature. So just exactly what you don't want. Well, thank goodness you got called out and shut that thing off and were able to land. And the Air Force guys did, or whoever the people were at the place, they didn't make you sit in jail with the aliens or whatever else they have there.
No, they actually let us get back to Fallon that evening. Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness. Wow. So, SMOKI'N, what did I miss? What do we got? What's on your card?
Well, you covered a lot, Admiral. You've had a fantastic, distinguished career. One thing that we didn't talk about, we talked a lot about the flying stuff. Post kind of flying career, I know you were the chairman of Tailhook. Can you talk a little bit about that organization and what your role was there and what the organization does? And folks that don't know, Tailhook Convention is coming up actually, I think, in another week, if I'm not mistaken.
It starts a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was newly out of the Navy, and my good friend, former squadron mate, Bad Fred Lewis, said, "Hey, you ought to come up to Tailhook. I think we'd like to get you on the board of directors." So, and he was chairman at the time. And I'd been part of Tailhook for quite a while, making a few presentations. When I was at VX4, we always had a suite where we'd bring up a couple of videos of the weapons tests we were doing, that sort of thing. And then I was fortunate to be honored to be Tailhooker of the Year after Desert Storm at Tailhook 91.
Amazing.
So yeah, I wanted to get involved, and Tailhook was really back up on its feet, really starting to do good work, not just to promote carrier aviation and sustain the history, but it had geared up its education foundation. And Mike Bowman, a former AirPac air boss,
he was my CAG in Desert Storm.
Yeah, had become the chair for the Tailhook Educational Foundation, and that was an even greater impetus, to stay involved. So after a couple of years as a board member, the board gave me the honor of electing me to be the chairman, and was able to ride it through from, I guess, 2005 through the centennial in 2011.
Fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say my Bad Fred Lewis story is I'm playing golf with him one time in Army Navy Country Club, and I made maybe the ugliest par you've ever seen on a par 3. And Bad Fred says, "SMOKI'N, they don't draw a picture on the scorecard; they just write a number."
That's it. Well, I was still on the West Coast when F-14 was already back at Oceana, finishing up my RAG tour. And for whatever reason, the F-8 guys needed a ONC for a care qualdet on the East Coast and asked if I could do it. And I said, "Hey, I'd love to do it because I could go meet my squadron mates that I'm going to join." So I go out and do the care qual thing, and then come back to Oceana, walk into the VF-14 spaces, and it's the middle of winter. It's like March. And I'd traveled from the West Coast, so I'm in khakis, green flight jacket, hair down over my ears. And everybody in the building's walking around in a fireman uniform, the black shirt and the black trowel. I'm a little taken aback, but Bad Fred greets me, walks me around the hangar, and introduced me to the skipper and the XO. And everything's just perfect, and I'm just getting ready to leave, walking down the ladder. The door opens, it's Bad Fred, and he says, "Hey, Rabbit." And I said, "Yeah." He says, "When you come back to check in, be in the uniform of the day, get a haircut, and trim that freaking mustache. Now I know why they call him Bad Fred.
Oh man.
I flew
Well,
one hop with him, and I was an ensign, and I was scared. I was intimidated, but he was very nice, so it was not a big deal.
well, a lot of great stuff happens at Tailhook, and a lot of forward-looking stuff happens at Tailhook. I'd like to get your vision on where you kind of see naval aviation going over the next 20 to 25 years. We're at a pretty big point right here with obviously new F-35 coming on and lots of other things that have changed. From a 30,000 foot view, and you've seen a lot from the past, what do you think is going to happen in the future?
Well, I tell you, I worry about affordability, Smoke. And we don't talk about that a lot. We got a great forum, as you know, at Top Gun with the briefs that go on, and the fact that the air boss and the flag panel gets up there, takes the bullets from the JOs. But we are under the gun for funding, and it takes too long to get our platforms fleet ready or even on the street. So we're moving in the right direction. I'm hoping that we can keep the impetus on the value of carrier aviation and the carrier battle group, what that gives the nation, so that we don't lose ground. But as you say, with the advent of the F-35, what we might get with the next generation fighter, some of the capability that we're going to see real time with the tanker that's a drone, the MQ-25. This is good stuff, but it's not magic, and it costs money. I just saw where in real dollars, in current dollars, the carriers that we've got under contract range from 12 billion to 16 billion, and that's before cost overruns. And we won't see the next one, I think, for another 4 years. Meanwhile, we can't get the refueling done on our Nimitz class carriers in under 18, 24 months. So trying to keep them all underway, a lot of it's affordability. A lot of it comes down to what does a nation really value? And I worry that issue.
Yeah.
And again, that's why the Tailhook Association and the fact that you guys put these kinds of things out for the public to understand what it is that naval aviation and the carrier battle group brings to our nation is so important.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
And I'm losing my light here, aren't I? I don't know if I can.
You're about to do a night trap, Admiral.
Yes, that's kind of me. I kind of live in darkness.
Get your NVG lighting set. Leekster, back over to you. And you're on mute.
His microphone's on mute.
Yeah, I was actually I was in awe because just looking at his career, I know he's got more night traps than most guys have total traps.
He's got more more time and tension than some guys have in anything. So
that's right.
Admiral, I wanted to ask you. You were talking about hydraulic catapults earlier.
Yeah.
What was the difference in a hydraulic cat shot? And I worked in the catapults for 4 years on the America. What's the difference between a hydraulic cat shot and a steam catapult shot?
Well, because the piston's moving through hydraulic power, it's like it gets slammed instead of drawn down and accelerated. So it's a shocker initially, and you feel that shock and acceleration a lot more abruptly. But
so not
again,
near.
that's a faint
it's a lot
memory
more intense on the hydraulic side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, I mean, think back. This was 1968. That's a lot of years
I
ago.
wasn't even born yet. Yeah, that's crazy.
And I
We
can't
used
even
to.
imagine with the new electronic cats, um, that gradual acceleration that gets you out there. I would think maybe I got a cold cat shot, with the way that
Right.
You would you would think that, wouldn't you?
yeah.
Well, yeah, an F-8 shot on a 27 Charlie is a heck of a shot, I'm thinking too, I mean, I don't know what the end speed was for that airplane, but it's probably around 170 or something. So you're smoking down that cat, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think the end speed was still right around 160. What? It probably wasn't much more than that because you had to
Tomcats on the
accelerate a
chronograph
little
are
bit.
usually around 120 to 138, somewhere around there.
What was that again?
Tomcats on the chronograph on the America were usually between 120 and 140. I don't think I ever saw one over that. Did you guys
Yeah,
ever
that'd
look
be
at the in speeds?
no, I didn't. My
Did
eyeballs
you,
were
Leeks?
caged up front.
No,
Yeah.
it's an airspeed equation for the airplane. So if you have a 28 knots over the deck is what they're looking for. A lot of times
Mhm.
with a cat shot where they had less wind, I can remember like 10 knots or 15 knots of wind because they were still bringing the ship up to speed for the people that were about to land.
Mhm.
The shots could be pretty violent. But the smaller ships, you have a shorter cat stroke because the ship is smaller, so they have to get you to the same speed on a smaller boat. That's why I figured on a 27 char an older ship like the Lexington or one of those Essex class carriers, that when you got a cat shot, it was probably a pretty darn good shot in a combat loaded airplane like an F-8.
On the America, we were the only ones on the East Coast that had a bridle system. So anytime somebody needed CQ, the America would go out for those bridle arresting
I
CQ
remember that.
evolutions.
I went out to be the Air Lant senior officer when I was a RAG CO on the last care qual for the S3, the ES3
What year
Superfine.
was that, Admiral?
That would have been 88.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I joined the America in '90.
So with Bug Roach, I mean, another legend in naval aviation. Sounds like you guys were in the same orbit most of your career.
Yeah. His first Vietnam cruise was on the Bonnie Dick in VF-53, and they decommissioned that squadron after that cruise. So he came
Mhm.
over to 191 on Riscony with us and just happened to become my roommate. So we ended up going to the RAG together, went skiing together. Um, he was again the LSO, the CAG LSO when I was XO of VF2, and then he was kind of languishing in VF 126 flying adversary airplanes when Desert Storm struck. And my CAG LSO was a senior lieutenant whose youngster had just been diagnosed with cancer. And I said, your job is to take care of your family. You're not going on cruise. You take care of that. And I called over to the wing and said, could we get Bug to come back? And Bug said, would I? Hunchback. So, yeah.
Wow, what a legend, a beloved LSO, and yeah, everybody knows who Bug was. Unfortunately, lost in an
Yeah.
A4 accident,
Yeah.
but
Right after that deployment.
legendary landing signal officer and fighter pilot. Well, this has been amazing. I appreciate your time, Admiral. I don't know what to say. This is probably one of the most interesting interviews we've ever done, and I look forward to listening to it again myself because there's so much here, and I know that I have about 1,000 more questions for you. So maybe I'll get a chance to see you at Tailhook sometime, or down in Sand Dog there, and hit you up with some more of what was it like questions.
Anytime like this is great.
Admiral, are you still part of Are you still part of Tailhook, or you still go?
I'll be up there next week. Yeah. Yeah. I again, I really do like to support the foundation,
Well,
the
you've done
Education
great things for that
Foundation.
organization because it's still kicking and screaming, probably for a lot of your leadership. So
Well,
I think
they're doing good
it's doing
work, and
better than ever. Yeah,
yeah,
they're doing great.
yeah, they moved into this new location. It's
Grand Sierra Resort.
yeah, and it's quite the organization.
Did you
Great
hear they
support.
overgrew the Nugget? They were missing 100. No, there was 100 vendors that were turned away. I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And
Two
they had to
years
switch it
ago.
to
Yeah.
the other resort so they could accommodate that.
Yep.
All
Well, it's
right.
been a pleasure for me, you guys. I really appreciate you dragging some of the past out of me.
Well,
It's great
stick
to hear
around for a
that, Admiral.
second. We're going to sign off. Lorenzo is going to close it out for us, and we'll have a quick debrief.
All right.
Awesome, man. I got to say, the smile on his face when Rabbit, I mean, it was absolutely legit, his smile when Rabbit confirmed that Hoser was the F8 rag instructor. And,
Right.
and it's going to be a good show when you're talking F8s fighting F4s. I mean, has that leads you next to, I have to call out Rabbit on that golden age in naval aviation mustache he's still rocking, which is just absolutely awesome, man. The swag is on
Great.
point. Yeah, I really love that mustache. But yeah,
So
absolutely
the
great show, guys.
closeout to the Hoser story is that when I got to be the 101 CO, he was one of my instructors before
Wow.
he left the Navy. So I start out and he's my instructor, and then I finish up and he's an instructor for me. Yeah.
Sounds like you were around legends your whole career.
Small world.
I was. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when he talked about going into theater in Desert Storm. And I was like, how many people were there? Heater was there. I mean, Rabbit's there, Bio's there. There's just so many great legends that left some amazing history in the F-14 community. And they were all in one spot at one time. The capability of the fleet, that was like the shining moment of its potential right there for that era to say. With the talent on board, the Diamondbacks snored over in 33, and it was never to be repeated, like I say. But awesome show, guys.